Here's a focused comparison of how Insaf is treated by Christians in Sudan versus Christians in India in The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, with direct references to the novel's content. Christians in Sudan, Pastor David's family and church community. Treatment of Insaf. Conditional acceptance. Insaf is initially taken in by Pastor David's family after being expelled from a hospital and rejected by other Christian families. The welcome is fraught with suspicion, especially from Mrs. Holly, Clementina's mother, who believes Insaf is possessed by evil spirits and tries to exorcise her. Suspicion and manipulation. The church community is scandalized by the presence of a Muslim girl in a Christian pastor's home, fearing she will tempt the pastor or his sons and bring shame to the family. Emotional manipulation and betrayal. When rumors about Insaf's past, including accusations of murder and prostitution, reach the family, Pastor David and Mrs. Holly confront her, record her confession, and ultimately betray her trust. The family's support is withdrawn, and Insaf is threatened with being handed over to the police. Never truly trusted or integrated, Insaf is expected to work as a maid, is treated with a mix of kindness and condescension, and is never truly trusted or integrated. Her presence is a source of conflict and scandal. Expulsion and trauma. When her relationship with William, the pastor's son, is discovered, she is persecuted by the church community and ultimately forced to flee, feeling deeply betrayed and wounded by those who claimed to offer Christian charity. Quote, "Her only flaw is that she resisted any attempt to convert her from Islam to Christianity. The pastor's two sons, William and Andrew, openly displayed their affection for the beautiful Muslim maid from the beginning. The Christian parents took the matter seriously when they got reports from their younger son saying otherwise. Their first reaction is to expel the sinful infidel Muslim girl from their sacred abode and send her back to the streets from where she came. However, they canceled their decision when their son, William, threatened to leave his home and abandon his family and go with her." Christians in India, Matthew family and Indian Christian community. Treatment of Insaf. Unconditional compassion. Insaf is bailed out of jail and welcomed into the home of Mrs. Matthew and her family, who treat her as a daughter, regardless of her religion or past. Respect and dignity. She is given shelter, food, clothing, and emotional support. The family provides for her and her child, and she is included in daily life and treated with dignity and respect. No pressure to convert. The Indian Christian family never tries to convert Insaf or force her to participate in their religious practices. She is free to join or abstain from prayers and church attendance. Defended against danger. When Insaf faces threats from the Sudanese embassy and religious extremists, the Matthew family actively protects her, helps her seek asylum, and risks their own safety and reputation for her well-being. Empathy and solidarity. Even when the wider Indian Christian community is hesitant, the Matthew family stands by Insaf, believing in her innocence and moral integrity. Quote, "Within a few months, Insaf blossomed like a beautiful rose in that loving and well-cared-for home. Her moral integrity, friendly nature, and physical beauty attracted all who approached her. At this time, the Muslim girl Insaf reminisced the hard time she spent with the Coptic Christian family members in Sudan, where she fell in love with their son, William. How she was falsely accused and brutally persecuted when the Christian pastor, David, learned that she was in a love affair with his Coptic son. The Muslim wife found a significant difference between the love of the Indian Christian family and the persecution of the Sudanese Christian family." Summary table. Aspect: Christians in Sudan, Pastor David's family; Christians in India, Matthew family. Initial reception: conditional, suspicious, manipulative, compassionate, warm, inclusive. Integration: made duties, emotional tension, betrayal, treated as family, dignity, support. Religious pressure: attempts at conversion, exorcism, judgment, no pressure to convert, respect for faith. Response to scandal: expulsion, betrayal, trauma, defended, protected, believed in. Outcome: rejected, traumatized, on the run, supported, empowered, finds belonging. Key insights. Christians in Sudan treat Insaf with suspicion, conditional charity, and ultimately betrayal and expulsion, motivated by fear of scandal and religious exclusivity. Christians in India, the Matthew family, offer her unconditional compassion, respect, and protection, motivated by empathy and a sense of shared humanity, regardless of her faith or past. The contrast highlights the novel's critique of hypocrisy, conditional charity, and the power of genuine, inclusive love. Drawing from the content of The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, here's how the contrasting treatments by Christians in Sudan and India deeply affect Insaf's character, psychology, and journey. 1. Treatment by Christians in Sudan: conditional, suspicious, and ultimately betraying. Emotional impact. Insaf's experience with Pastor David's family and the Sudanese Christian community is marked by suspicion, conditional charity, and eventual betrayal. She is never truly trusted or integrated, and when her past is revealed, she is emotionally manipulated, threatened with police, and expelled. Resulting feelings. Deepened trauma. The betrayal by those who claim to offer Christian charity intensifies her sense of being unwanted and unsafe, even among those who should be compassionate. Loss of trust. She learns that even apparent kindness can be withdrawn and weaponized against her, making her wary of authority figures and hesitant to trust others. Isolation. The rejection by the Christian community in Sudan compounds her isolation, as she is already ostracized by her own Muslim family and society. Internalized shame. The conditional acceptance and subsequent expulsion reinforce her feelings of shame and unworthiness. Quote, "Her only flaw is that she resisted any attempt to convert her from Islam to Christianity. The Christian parents took the matter seriously when they got reports from their younger son saying otherwise. Their first reaction is to expel the sinful infidel Muslim girl from their sacred abode and send her back to the streets from where she came." 2. Treatment by Christians in India: unconditional, compassionate, and empowering. Emotional impact. In India, the Matthew family offers Insaf unconditional compassion, respect, and protection. She is treated as a daughter, given dignity, and never pressured to convert. Even when the wider community is hesitant, the family stands by her. Resulting feelings. Healing and restoration. The genuine love and acceptance she receives allow her to begin healing from her trauma and rediscover her sense of self-worth. Empowerment. She is empowered to make her own choices, including her eventual conversion to Christianity, which is depicted as a personal and spiritual liberation rather than a coerced act. Belonging. For the first time, she experiences true belonging and family, which gives her the strength to endure further trials. Resilience. The support she receives helps her develop resilience and hope, even in the face of ongoing legal and social threats. Quote, "Within a few months, Insaf blossomed like a beautiful rose in that loving and well-cared-for home. At this time, the Muslim girl Insaf reminisced the hard time she spent with the Coptic Christian family members in Sudan, where she fell in love with their son, William. How she was falsely accused and brutally persecuted when the Christian pastor, David, learned that she was in a love affair with his Coptic son. The Muslim wife found a significant difference between the love of the Indian Christian family and the persecution of the Sudanese Christian family." 3. Overall effects on Insaf. Contrast and growth. The contrast between conditional, judgmental charity in Sudan and unconditional, empowering love in India is pivotal in Insaf's transformation from a traumatized, isolated victim to a resilient, self-possessed survivor. Identity and agency. The betrayal in Sudan makes her guarded and skeptical, but the acceptance in India allows her to reclaim her agency, make her own spiritual choices, and find a new sense of identity. Resilience and hope. The compassion of the Indian Christian family becomes a source of hope and resilience, enabling her to endure further persecution and ultimately build a new life. Summary table. Treatment effect on Insaf. Christians in Sudan trauma, loss of trust, isolation, internalized shame, deepened wounds. Christians in India healing, empowerment, sense of belonging, restored dignity, resilience, hope. In essence, the conditional, suspicious treatment by Christians in Sudan reinforces Insaf's trauma and isolation, while the unconditional, empowering love of Christians in India is transformative, helping her heal, reclaim her agency, and find hope and belonging. Drawing from the content of The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, here's how Insaf's experiences with Christians in Sudan and India shape her identity. 1. Betrayal and conditional acceptance in Sudan. Identity shaped by trauma and distrust. Conditional charity and betrayal. In Sudan, Insaf is initially taken in by Pastor David's Christian family, but their acceptance is conditional. When her past is revealed, she is emotionally manipulated, threatened, and ultimately expelled. Impact on identity. Deepens her sense of alienation. The betrayal by those who claim to offer Christian charity intensifies her feeling of being an outcast. She learns that even apparent kindness can be withdrawn, making her wary of trusting others. Loss of innocence and trust. Repeated betrayals by both Muslim and Christian communities erode her trust in social institutions and authority figures. Survivor's mentality. These experiences force Insaf to rely more on her own judgment and inner strength, rather than seeking validation or safety from others. She becomes more guarded, but also more determined to survive on her own terms. Complex emotional landscape. The trauma and shame she experiences in Sudan leave her with scars, anger, grief, and a sense of injustice, but also a growing awareness of her own resilience. 2. Unconditional compassion in India. Identity shaped by healing, agency, and belonging. Unconditional love and support. In India, the Matthew family offers Insaf unconditional compassion, respect, and protection. She is treated as a daughter, given dignity, and never pressured to convert. Impact on identity. Restoration of dignity. The genuine love and acceptance she receives allow her to begin healing from her trauma and rediscover her sense of self-worth. Empowerment and agency. For the first time, Insaf is empowered to make her own choices, including her eventual conversion to Christianity, which is depicted as a personal and spiritual liberation, not a coerced act. Sense of belonging. She experiences true belonging and family, which gives her the strength to endure further trials and assert her own identity. Resilience and hope. The support she receives helps her develop resilience and hope, even in the face of ongoing legal and social threats. She learns that her worth is not defined by others' judgments. 3. Synthesis. How these experiences shape her identity. From victim to survivor to agent. The conditional, judgmental charity in Sudan reinforces Insaf's trauma and isolation, shaping her as a survivor who is wary and self-reliant. The unconditional, empowering love in India is transformative, helping her heal, reclaim her agency, and find hope and belonging. Claiming her own story. Through these contrasting experiences, Insaf moves from being a passive victim of circumstance to an active agent in her own life. She learns to define herself not by the labels others put on her, adulteress, criminal, outcast, but by her own choices, values, and resilience. Embracing complexity. Insaf's identity becomes complex and multifaceted, marked by suffering but not defined by it. She ultimately claims her own agency and voice in a hostile world, and her journey becomes a testament to the possibility of transformation through compassion and solidarity. Direct quotes illustrating this transformation. Surviving this ordeal, Insaf learns to rely more on her own judgment and inner strength, rather than seeking validation or safety from others. She becomes more guarded, but also more determined to survive on her own terms. Within a few months, Insaf blossomed like a beautiful rose in that loving and well-cared-for home. The Muslim wife found a significant difference between the love of the Indian Christian family and the persecution of the Sudanese Christian family. She is now accused of the most vicious crime, which Indians consider more serious than murder, armed robbery, and terrorism. Despite this serious charge, the Christian Indian family trusted her, believed in her innocence, and cared for her as if she were their own daughter. Summary table. Experience effect on identity. Christians in Sudan: alienation, distrust, survivor's mentality, loss of innocence. Christians in India: healing, empowerment, sense of belonging, restored dignity, agency. In essence, Insaf's identity is forged in the crucible of betrayal and compassion. The conditional acceptance and betrayal in Sudan make her guarded and self-reliant, while the unconditional love in India allows her to heal, reclaim her agency, and embrace a new, self-defined identity rooted in resilience and hope. Based on the content of The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, here's how others perceive Insaf's transformation throughout the novel. 1. Family and community in Sudan. Suspicion and condemnation. Insaf's family and the broader Sudanese community largely view her transformation from obedient daughter to a woman who asserts her agency and crosses racial, religious, and social boundaries as a source of shame and scandal. Her acts of independence, loving Deng, fleeing forced marriage, surviving on her own, later converting to Christianity, are seen as rebellion and betrayal. Perception. She is labeled as fallen, criminal, apostate, and disgraceful. Her transformation is not recognized as growth or resilience, but as evidence of her corruption and immorality. Even after her legal vindication, many in her community continue to ostracize her, seeing her as a cautionary tale rather than a survivor. Quote, "She is now accused of the most vicious crime, which Indians consider more serious than murder, armed robbery, and terrorism. Despite this serious charge, the Christian Indian family trusted her, believed in her innocence, and cared for her as if she were their own daughter." 2. Christians in Sudan. Conditional acceptance, then betrayal. Pastor David's family and the church initially offer Insaf shelter, but when she asserts her independence or her past is revealed, they turn on her. Her transformation is perceived as dangerous, threatening, and ultimately unacceptable. Perception. Her resilience and refusal to conform are seen as stubbornness or even evil. When she refuses to convert or submit, she is expelled and betrayed, reinforcing the idea that her transformation is a threat to the community's values. 3. Christians in India, Matthew family and allies. Admiration and empathy. The Matthew family and their close circle in India see Insaf's transformation as a story of courage, resilience, and moral integrity. They recognize her suffering and admire her ability to endure, adapt, and remain compassionate. Perception. They see her as a daughter, a survivor, and a person of deep inner strength. Her eventual conversion to Christianity is not forced or demanded, but is respected as a personal journey. Her ability to forgive, to love, and to care for others despite her trauma is seen as inspiring. Quote, "Within a few months, Insaf blossomed like a beautiful rose in that loving and well-cared-for home. The Muslim wife found a significant difference between the love of the Indian Christian family and the persecution of the Sudanese Christian family." 4. Sudanese diaspora and student community, India and abroad. Polarization and hostility. Among Sudanese students and diaspora, Insaf's transformation is polarizing. Many see her as a disgrace, an apostate, or a traitor for marrying across racial lines and later converting to Christianity. Perception. She is slandered, isolated, and threatened, especially after she asserts her new identity, e.g., wearing a cross, standing up to religious leaders. Some, especially those who are themselves marginalized, may quietly admire her courage, but most are vocal in their condemnation. Quote, "The Sudanese student who lost his sight on the left eye and became blind due to her attack with one of her high heels screamed at her and called her again, a disgusting whore with a big smelly pussy. The Indian son Mark told her to ignore those useless Sudanese students." 5. Close allies and new family. Respect and solidarity. Those who come to know Insaf personally, like Deng, the Matthew family, and a few others, see her transformation as heroic. They respect her for her endurance, her refusal to surrender to injustice, and her ability to love and trust again. Perception. They see her as a role model for resilience and hope. Her transformation inspires them to acts of solidarity and compassion. Summary table. Group perception of Insaf's transformation. Sudanese family/community shame, scandal, rebellion, apostasy, disgrace. Christians in Sudan threat, stubbornness, ultimately betrayal and expulsion. Christians in India admiration, empathy, respect, inspiration. Sudanese diaspora/students disgrace, apostasy, hostility, sometimes secret admiration. Close allies/new family heroism, resilience, hope, role model. In essence, hostile environments, Sudan, diaspora, see her transformation as a threat or disgrace. Compassionate environments, Matthew family, Deng, see her as a survivor and a beacon of hope. Her transformation exposes the values and prejudices of those around her. Those who are rigid and fearful condemn her, while those who are open and loving are inspired by her. Based on the content of The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, the Matthew family's decision to help Insaf while she was in jail in India is a pivotal moment in the novel. Here's a detailed answer with direct references. Why did the Matthew family decide to help Insaf? 1. Compassion and empathy. The Matthew family, especially Mrs. Matthew and her son Mark, are portrayed as deeply compassionate and empathetic. When they learn about Insaf's plight, her wrongful imprisonment, isolation, and the fact that she is a foreign woman alone and pregnant in a hostile environment, they are moved to help her out of genuine human concern. Quote, "Within a few months, Insaf blossomed like a beautiful rose in that loving and well-cared-for home. At this time, the Muslim girl Insaf reminisced the hard time she spent with the Coptic Christian family members in Sudan, where she fell in love with their son, William. How she was falsely accused and brutally persecuted when the Christian pastor, David, learned that she was in a love affair with his Coptic son. The Muslim wife found a significant difference between the love of the Indian Christian family and the persecution of the Sudanese Christian family. 2. Recognition of innocence and moral integrity. Mark, in particular, is struck by Insaf's reaction to public humiliation and slander in court. He observes that if she were truly a criminal or a prostitute, she would not have reacted so violently to the insults and would not have maintained her dignity under such pressure. Quote, Mark said, "Yes, Insaf, let me first tell you why I decided to help you. I were there in the criminal court complex when that evil Sudanese student insulted you. I understood that if you were truly a prostitute and drug dealer, you would not have reacted in such a violent way by hitting your attacker in the face with your high-heel shoe and gouging out his left eye." 3. Belief in second chances and unconditional love. The Matthew family believes in offering second chances and unconditional support, regardless of a person's background or the accusations against them. They see Insaf as a victim of circumstance and injustice, not as a criminal. Quote, Mrs. Matthew approached her and affectionately hugged her tightly. "Don't say those words again, my daughter Insaf. I am a mother like you. I have one son and 3 daughters. I cannot leave a young mother of your age and a baby like your son wandering on the streets or return back to jail." 4. Willingness to risk social and religious backlash. Despite warnings from their church and community, the Matthew family stands by Insaf, even when it means risking their own reputation and facing criticism from others. Quote, "Despite our church's warning, my son Mark insisted that we must help you, and so far, we have done so." 5. Personal conviction and direct experience. Mark's direct observation of Insaf's suffering and his conversations with her convince him of her innocence and moral worth. He is not swayed by rumors or prejudice, but by what he sees and learns from Insaf herself. Quote, Mark said seriously after interrupting his mother's heartbreaking words, "Listen, Insaf. We are willing to provide you with further assistance, but we want to make sure that we will not get into trouble with the law. We want you to tell us how you got involved in the drug trafficking charge." Summary table. Reason for helping evidence from the novel. Compassion and empathy. I cannot leave a young mother of your age and a baby like your son wandering on the streets. Recognition of innocence. If you were truly a prostitute and drug dealer, you would not have reacted in such a violent way. Belief in second chances. I am a mother like you. I cannot leave a young mother wandering on the streets. Willingness to risk backlash. Despite our church's warning, my son Mark insisted that we must help you. Personal conviction. We want you to tell us how you got involved in the drug trafficking charge. In essence, the Matthew family's decision to help Insaf is rooted in their compassion, their recognition of her innocence and dignity, their belief in unconditional love, and their willingness to stand by her even when it is difficult or unpopular. Their actions are a powerful contrast to the conditional and judgmental charity Insaf experienced elsewhere, and they play a crucial role in her healing and transformation. Based on the content of The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, the Matthew family faced several significant challenges when they decided to help Insaf while she was in jail in India. Here's a detailed summary with direct references. Challenges faced by the Matthew family in helping Insaf. 1. Social and religious backlash. Community disapproval. The Matthew family's decision to help Insaf was met with disapproval from their church, relatives, and friends. Many advised them to keep Insaf and her child separated from their main household, or to cancel her bail and send her back to jail. Quote, the Matthew Christian family's decision to shelter the suspected Arab Muslim wife, Insaf Salah al-Junaid, and her infant child has been met with disapproval by their relatives and friends. Some church leaders even advised the family members to keep the suspected Sudanese wife released on bail and her child separated from them in a rented apartment. 2. Risk to reputation and relationships. Risking social standing. By standing by Insaf, the family risked their own reputation and relationships within the Indian Christian community. They were warned that their support for a foreign, Muslim, and accused woman could bring shame or suspicion upon them. Quote, despite our church's warning, my son Mark insisted that we must help you, and so far, we have done so. 3. Legal and financial risks. Financial burden. The family paid substantial bail amounts to secure Insaf's release from jail, and later had to pay even more when the court increased the bail. Legal jeopardy. By helping Insaf escape possible extradition and by providing her with shelter and support, they risked legal consequences if authorities viewed their actions as aiding a fugitive. Quote, the judge accepted the request and increased the bail to 700,000 Indian rupees, which equivalent to $21,000 US. Mrs. Matthew and her son Mark agreed to pay the additional amount. 4. Threats from Sudanese community and embassy. Diplomatic pressure. The Sudanese embassy actively sought Insaf's extradition, and the Matthew family had to navigate the risk of being caught in international legal and diplomatic disputes. Hostility from Sudanese students. The Sudanese student community in India was hostile to Insaf and, by extension, to those who supported her, including the Matthew family. 5. Personal safety concerns. Potential danger. By sheltering Insaf, who was targeted by both Sudanese authorities and extremist elements, the family exposed themselves to potential danger, including threats from those who wanted to see Insaf punished or deported. 6. Emotional and psychological strain. Emotional toll. The family, especially Mrs. Matthew, endured significant emotional stress, spending several hours inside her room on her knees while praying and pleading for Insaf to be saved by a divine intervention. Quote, the 4 weeks of hearings went by like 4 days. When the last week began, the suspected Sudanese girl has lost all hope. She spends most of her time inside her room with her little boy Dang Jr. in the home of the loving Christian Indian family. She cries silently day and night. Likewise, every day Mrs. Matthew spends several hours inside her room on her knees while praying and pleading for Insaf to be saved by a divine intervention. It is a tough time for Matthew's family. Summary table. Challenge description. Social/religious backlash, disapproval from church, relatives, and friends. Risk to reputation. Legal/financial risks, high bail amounts. Risk of legal consequences for aiding a fugitive. Diplomatic/community threats, pressure from Sudanese embassy, hostility from Sudanese students and diaspora. Personal safety, exposure to potential threats from those targeting Insaf. Emotional strain, psychological and emotional toll on family members, especially Mrs. Matthew. In essence, the Matthew family's decision to help Insaf was an act of courage and compassion, but it came at great personal, social, financial, and emotional cost. Their willingness to face these challenges is a testament to their values and plays a crucial role in Insaf's journey toward healing and hope. If you more direct Based on the content of The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, here's how Mrs. Matthew and her son Mark orchestrated Insaf's escape from India to the UK and the consequences that followed. How Mrs. Matthew and Mark orchestrated Insaf's escape. 1. The plan. Context. Insaf was facing imminent extradition to Sudan after her asylum application was rejected in India, and the Indian court increased her bail. The Sudanese embassy was actively seeking her return, and her life was in danger due to the threat of execution for apostasy and previous legal charges. Decision. Mrs. Matthew and Mark decided to help Insaf escape India by sending her to the UK, where her husband Ding was recovering from surgery. Execution. False identity. They provided Insaf with the Indian passport of their daughter, Emily Matthew, and added Insaf's photo to it. The passport also included a 6-month UK visa. Travel arrangements. Mark booked a plane ticket for Insaf, under the name Emily Matthew, and her son, Ding Jr., to London. They gave her $5,000 in cash for expenses. Secrecy. Only Mrs. Matthew and Mark knew about the plan. They kept it secret from the rest of the family and their community to avoid legal and social repercussions. Final instructions. Mrs. Matthew took Insaf and her son to a restaurant, explained the plan, and reassured her that everything was arranged. Mark joined them to hand over the passport, money, and travel details. Quote, "You are traveling to your husband Ding in London. He is already in England. We will give you the name and address of the hospital where he is staying. This is the passport for you. It's my daughter Emily Matthew's passport. You will travel in her name. Your son Ding Jr. has been added to the passport as well. This passport contains a 6-month visiting visa to the United Kingdom. These are $5,000 in cash. Don't let anyone scam you out of your money." 2. The consequences. A. For Insaf. Arrest in the UK. Upon arrival in London, Insaf was discovered traveling on a forged passport. She was detained by British authorities for identity fraud and illegal entry. Legal jeopardy. The British police, after investigation, learned of her escape from India and her conviction in Sudan. She faced possible extradition to Sudan, where she risked execution. Detention and investigation. Insaf was interrogated, admitted to using a false passport, and was held for further investigation. The Indian police confirmed her escape from a pending trial, and the Sudanese embassy requested her extradition. Eventual rescue. Thanks to the intervention of her husband Ding and a compassionate UN legal advisor in London, Jennifer Beals, evidence of her presidential pardon in Sudan was found, and she was granted refugee status in the UK, preventing her extradition. B. For the Matthew family. Legal risk. By providing a forged passport and facilitating Insaf's escape, Mrs. Matthew and Mark risked criminal charges for aiding illegal immigration and identity fraud. They also risked losing the substantial bail money they had posted for Insaf in India. Social and religious backlash. Their actions, if discovered, could have led to severe criticism or ostracism from their church and community, who were already disapproving of their support for Insaf. Personal sacrifice. Mrs. Matthew and Mark accepted these risks out of compassion and a sense of moral duty, prioritizing Insaf's safety over their own security and reputation. Quote, "But you and your mother will go to jail for helping me escape. At most, they might take the bail money. I will tell the police that you ran away when no one was home except my sleeping mother. With your son, you ran away." "My daughter, Insaf," said Mrs. Matthew in a sad voice, "they have all already formed a bad opinion of you. Everyone in the church, our friends and relatives, have asked us to cancel your bail and send you back to jail. To them, you are a wolf in sheep's clothing. Many of them have changed their opinion of you and started accusing you of being a murderous girl, a professional prostitute, and a notorious drug dealer." Summary table. Step action. Passport and visa used Emily Matthews' passport with Insaf's photo and a UK visa. Travel arrangements booked flight, provided cash, gave hospital address in London. Secrecy only Mrs. Matthew and Mark knew, kept secret from family and community. Legal risk risked criminal charges and loss of bail money. Social risk faced community and church backlash. Consequences for Insaf: arrest in UK, detention, risk of extradition, eventual rescue, and asylum. In essence, Mrs. Matthew and Mark orchestrated Insaf's escape from India to the UK by providing her with a forged passport, money, and travel arrangements, fully aware of the legal and social risks. Their actions were driven by compassion and a sense of justice, and though it led to Insaf's temporary detention and investigation in the UK, it ultimately saved her from likely execution in Sudan and allowed her to start a new life as a refugee. Here are direct references and quotes from The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, showing Insaf's reactions to the news that Mrs. Matthew, her Indian Christian mother, is dying. Insaf's emotional reaction to Mrs. Matthew's illness. The letter was sent to them by the good Indian son Mark Matthew. It's short and concise. In a few words, Brother Mark told his sister Insaf that his Christian mother was dying of cancer. The Sudanese daughter Insaf felt that small piece of paper like a poisonous dagger stuck in her heart. She began crying day and night for her good Christian Indian mother, Mrs. Matthew. The African husband Deng tried to console his Arab wife, Insaf, but he could not. Finally, he encouraged her to visit the sick Mrs. Matthew in India. Insaf insisted that Deng and their 2 children should accompany her to Bombay. She wants her husband to visit the Good Samaritan Christians who took her in when everyone rejected her and treated her like a notorious drug dealer and a dirty prostitute. Her actions upon arrival in India. Insaf's tears continually flow from her beautiful eyes onto her soft cheeks as Mark's new car gets closer and closer to her loving Indian mother. Her heart overflows with conflicting, uncontrollable, ambivalent feelings of sadness and joy. She wants to see and embrace the Good Samaritan Christian mother before death closes her merciful eyes forever. When the car arrived at Matthew's family home, Insaf is the first to open the door and run to the stairs. While she is running up the stairs quickly to the 4th floor, she stumbled and fell several times. And every time she stood up and kept running, she cries and calls her beloved Christian mother in Hindi, "Mummy, Mummy." At Mrs. Matthew's bedside, the Sudanese daughter Insaf climbed the 4 floors in just a few minutes. She opened the door and quickly entered the house. She rushed to Mrs. Matthew's room. She saw her good Christian mother lying on the bed with her eyes closed. She is surrounded by her family members, relatives, friends, and the church pastor, elders, and many other people. Then the Sudanese daughter Insaf threw her hands around her Indian mother Mrs. Matthew, embraced her lovingly, and began to cry bitterly. After Mrs. Matthew's passing, on the same night that Insaf, Deng, and their children, Mark and Emily, arrived at the holy Christian abode, Mrs. Matthew's honorable soul left her holy mortal body and went to be with the Lord. Insaf cried all that night until she lost her voice. 3 days later, the remains of Mrs. Matthew are buried, and her body is confined in the cemetery of the Indian Christians. Her funeral has been attended by many people, including her family, relatives, and members of her church. Although the good Christian mother died and left, her generous spirit became an immortal spirit in the lives of her Indian family and the Sudanese family. Summary of Insaf's reactions. Profound grief. The news of Mrs. Matthews' illness is described as a poisonous dagger to Insaf's heart, and she cries day and night. Longing and urgency, she insists on traveling to India immediately, desperate to see her good Christian Indian mother before she dies. Physical and emotional overwhelm. Upon arrival, Insaf is overcome with emotion, stumbling and crying as she rushes to Mrs. Matthews' bedside, calling out, "Mummy, Mummy." Unrestrained sorrow, she embraces Mrs. Matthew and cried all that night until she lost her voice after her passing. Lasting impact. Mrs. Matthews' death leaves a permanent mark on Insaf, who remembers her as a source of unconditional love and spiritual guidance. Certainly. Here's a comparative analysis of Insaf and Deng's experiences based on The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed. 1. Background and identity. Insaf. Arab girl from northern Sudan, Shakia tribe, raised in a conservative Muslim family. Her identity is shaped by strict gender roles, family honor, and religious expectations. Faces intense pressure to conform to her family's and society's ideals of purity, obedience, and racial superiority. Deng. African boy from South Sudan, Dinka tribe, son of a Muslim father and a Christian mother. Grows up navigating both Islamic and Christian influences, but ultimately raised as a Muslim. Experiences marginalization as a black Negro slave in the eyes of northern Sudanese Arabs. 2. Experiences of oppression and discrimination. Insaf. Gender-based oppression, subjected to forced confinement, head shaving, and repeated female genital mutilation after her relationship with Deng is discovered. Victim of patriarchal control, her father arranges a forced marriage to an elderly man, Haj Taha, to restore family honor. Public shaming and legal persecution, falsely accused of adultery, infanticide, theft, and murder, faces public scandal and is tried in court. Sexual exploitation and blackmail, targeted by a pimp, Haja Shada, who attempts to coerce her into sexual acts for money. Religious and social exclusion, ostracized by both Muslim and Christian communities at different points, later faces threats for converting to Christianity. Deng. Racial discrimination, treated as inferior by Insaf's family and broader Arab society. Their relationship is labeled abominable due to his African heritage. Family rejection. His parents, though themselves a mixed couple, ultimately reject Insaf as a suitable partner for their son due to her Arab background and the scandal surrounding her. Legal and physical violence. Flogged and later disabled as a result of Sharia court rulings, his marriage to Insaf is annulled on the grounds of tribal inadequacy. Loss and isolation, disowned by his family, loses his fiancée Susie, and is left alone after Insaf is forced to flee. 3. Agency and resistance. Insaf. Survival and resilience. Despite repeated trauma, she escapes abusive situations, fights back against sexual exploitation, and survives imprisonment and exile. Acts of defiance. Kills Haj Taha in self-defense, slaps a religious leader who tries to shame her, and refuses to renounce her love for Deng. Transformation. Moves from a passive victim to an active survivor, ultimately converting to Christianity and seeking asylum abroad. Deng. Loyalty and sacrifice. Sells his car, drops out of medical school, and risks his life and family ties to defend Insaf. Endurance. Endures public humiliation, physical punishment, and disability without abandoning his love for Insaf. Advocacy. Hires a lawyer for Insaf, stands by her during her trials, and appeals for her safety even when separated by continents. 4. Encounters with law and society. Insaf. Legal victimization, faces multiple criminal charges, is sentenced to death, and only survives due to a presidential pardon and international advocacy. Social scapegoating, blamed for the misfortunes of those around her, including the deaths of her husband and friend, and is branded a prostitute and criminal. Exile and statelessness, forced to flee Sudan, then India, and finally seeks refuge in the UK and Canada. Deng. Legal injustice. His marriage is annulled by Sharia court due to tribal incompatibility, is flogged and later paralyzed as punishment for adultery. Racial scapegoating. Blamed for corrupting Insaf and bringing shame to both families, his love is seen as a threat to social order. Displacement. Ultimately forced to leave Sudan, undergoes surgery in the UK, and resettles in Canada. 5. Resolution and outcome. Both Insaf and Deng endure immense suffering due to intersecting forces of racism, patriarchy, religious intolerance, and legal injustice. Their love, though repeatedly attacked, becomes a form of resistance. They ultimately reunite, marry, and build a new life together in Canada. Both are permanently changed. Insaf becomes a symbol of resilience and transformation. Deng, despite his disability, remains steadfast and loving. Summary table. Aspect Insaf, Arab woman, Deng, African man. Main oppression gender, religion, family, sexual exploitation race, tribe, religion, legal system. Family response imprisonment, forced marriage, disownment rejection of Insaf, disownment of Deng. Legal experience multiple false charges, death sentence, exile flogging, disability, annulled marriage. Agency escapes, fights back, converts, seeks asylum defends Insaf, sacrifices, endures punishment. Resolution reunites with Deng, builds new life in Canada reunites with Insaf, builds new life in Canada. In summary, Insaf and Deng's experiences mirror and amplify each other. Both are punished for crossing boundaries of race, religion, and gender, but both also demonstrate extraordinary resilience, loyalty, and the capacity to love against all odds. Their journey exposes the destructive power of prejudice and the enduring strength of hope and solidarity. Drawing from the content of The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, here's how Insaf and Deng resist oppression throughout their journeys. Their resistance is both personal and collective, and it evolves as they face different forms of injustice, patriarchal, racial, religious, and legal. Insaf's resistance. 1. Defiance against patriarchal and gender oppression. Refusing submission, Insaf resists her father's control, forced confinement, and forced marriage. She does not passively accept her fate, but seeks ways to escape. Self-defense. On her wedding night, when Haj Taha tries to rape her, she fights back and kills him in self-defense, refusing to be a victim of marital rape. Rejecting shame. Despite public shaming, virginity tests, and accusations, Insaf refuses to internalize the shame imposed on her by her family and community. 2. Survival and agency in the face of violence. Escaping abusers, she repeatedly escapes from situations of abuse, fleeing her family, the old husband, and later, the pimp Haja Shada who tries to sexually exploit her. Fighting back, when blackmailed and threatened with sexual exploitation, Insaf ultimately kills Haja Shada to protect herself from being trafficked. 3. Asserting identity and dignity. Public acts of defiance. In India, when a religious leader tries to snatch her cross and shame her for converting to Christianity, Insaf slaps him in public, asserting her right to her new faith and bodily autonomy. Conversion as resistance. Her conversion from Islam to Christianity is not just spiritual, but a form of resistance against the religious and social structures that oppressed her. 4. Endurance and hope. Surviving imprisonment. Insaf endures torture, starvation, and humiliation in both Sudanese and Indian prisons, but refuses to give up hope for freedom and justice. Seeking asylum. She actively pursues legal avenues for asylum, telling her story to authorities and the UN, even when repeatedly rejected. Deng's resistance. 1. Challenging racial and social barriers. Loving across boundaries, Deng's love for Insaf is itself an act of resistance against entrenched racism and tribalism. He refuses to accept that their relationship is abominable. Standing up to family and society, Deng defies his own family's wishes, sells his car, drops out of medical school, and is disowned for refusing to abandon Insaf. 2. Legal and moral advocacy. Hiring a lawyer, Deng takes concrete action by hiring Siham Khalil, a feminist lawyer, to defend Insaf and works with her to gather evidence and challenge the prosecution. Public loyalty. He stands by Insaf during her trial, visits her in jail, and publicly asserts her innocence, even when it costs him his family and fiancé. 3. Enduring physical and legal violence. Surviving flogging and disability. Deng endures flogging and is left disabled by the Sharia court, but does not let this break his spirit or loyalty to Insaf. Refusing to abandon love. Even after their marriage is annulled by the Sharia court, Deng refuses to leave Insaf, and they continue to live together despite the threat of punishment. 4. Sacrifice and solidarity. Personal sacrifice. Deng sacrifices his education, family, and social standing for Insaf, and later risks his life to help her escape. Appealing for justice. When Insaf faces extradition and execution, Deng appeals to the UN, writes letters, and mobilizes whatever support he can find. Shared resistance. Mutual support. Insaf and Deng draw strength from each other, supporting one another through exile, imprisonment, and legal battles. Building new alliances. Both accept help from outsiders, e.g., the Indian Christian family, the UN legal advisor Jennifer Beals, and are willing to cross religious and cultural lines to survive. Refusing to be defined by oppression. Ultimately, both refuse to let their identities be defined by the labels of criminal, adulterer, slave, or apostate. They claim the right to love, dignity, and a future together. Key moments of resistance, with examples from the novel. Character form of oppression act of resistance example. Insaf patriarchy, gender violence self-defense. Escape kills Haj Taha in self-defense, flees forced marriage. Insaf sexual exploitation fights back, kills pimp kills Haja Shahda to escape trafficking. Insaf religious/social exclusion public defiance, slaps religious leader in India, wears cross openly. Deng racism, tribalism defies family, supports Insaf sells car, hires lawyer, is disowned. Deng legal injustice endures flogging, appeals for justice survives Sharia punishment, writes to UN. Both social ostracism build new life, seek asylum reunite, marry, resettle in Canada. Summary. Insaf and Deng resist oppression through courage, solidarity, and a refusal to accept the roles imposed on them by family, society, and law. Their resistance is not just survival, it is a fight for dignity, love, and the right to define their own lives. Certainly. Here is a compelling conclusion to The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, synthesizing the novel's journey and its deeper meaning. Conclusion. In the end, The Abominable Love stands as a sweeping testament to the power of love and the indomitable human spirit in the face of relentless adversity. Insaf and Deng's journey, spanning continents, faiths, and social boundaries, reveals not only the cruelty of prejudice, patriarchy, and religious dogma, but also the extraordinary resilience that can arise from suffering. Their love, once branded as abominable, becomes a quiet act of revolution. Through every trial, imprisonment, exile, betrayal, and the threat of death, they refuse to surrender their dignity or abandon each other. Insaf's transformation from a silenced victim to a woman who claims her own voice, and Deng's unwavering loyalty in the face of violence and rejection, illuminate the novel's central truth, that love, when rooted in justice and mutual respect, can transcend even the most entrenched barriers. Yet, the novel does not offer easy redemption. The scars of racism, gender violence, and religious intolerance linger, shaping the lives of the protagonists long after they find refuge. Their eventual resettlement in Canada is not a fairy tale ending, but a hard one beginning, a chance to build a new life, free from the chains of their past, but always mindful of the cost. Ultimately, The Abominable Love is a call to conscience. It challenges readers to confront the systems, legal, cultural, and religious, that perpetuate injustice and to recognize the quiet heroism of those who resist. Insaf and Deng's story is not just about survival, but about the courage to hope, to love, and to imagine a world where dignity is not a privilege, but a right. Their journey reminds us that sometimes the most radical act is simply to endure and to love against all odds. Academic essay, book club discussion, and personal reflection. 1. Academic essay conclusion. In conclusion, The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed is not merely a narrative of star-crossed lovers, but a profound critique of the intersecting forces of racism, patriarchy, and religious dogma in Sudanese and broader post-colonial societies. Through the harrowing journeys of Insaf and Deng, the novel exposes the mechanisms by which social and legal systems perpetuate injustice, particularly against women and marginalized groups. Their resistance, manifested in acts of personal courage, mutual solidarity, and the pursuit of asylum, serves as both a narrative and political statement. Ultimately, the novel compels readers to interrogate the boundaries of law, faith, and identity, and to recognize the transformative potential of love and resilience in the struggle for dignity and justice. Insaf and Deng's story, therefore, is not only a testament to individual endurance, but also a call for systemic change and a more compassionate, inclusive world. 2. Book Club Discussion Conclusion. As we close the pages of The Abominable Love, we're left with a story that lingers far beyond its final chapter. Insaf and Deng's journey is both heartbreaking and inspiring, a vivid reminder of how love can endure even when the world seems determined to keep people apart. Their struggles against family, society, and the law invite us to reflect on the prejudices and barriers that still exist in our own communities. Yet, the novel also offers hope. Through resilience, solidarity, and the courage to seek a better life, Insaf and Deng carve out a space for themselves and their children. Their story challenges us to ask, what would we risk for love? How do we stand up to injustice, even when it comes from those closest to us? In the end, The Abominable Love is a celebration of the human spirit's capacity to endure, to hope, and to love against all odds. 3. Personal reflection conclusion. Reading The Abominable Love has been a deeply moving experience. Insaf and Deng's story made me confront the realities of prejudice, violence, and exile in ways that felt both intimate and universal. I was struck by Insaf's transformation from a silence victim to a woman who claims her own voice, and by Deng's unwavering loyalty in the face of unimaginable loss. Their journey reminded me that love is not just an emotion, but an act of courage, a refusal to let the world define who we are or who we can be with. Even as they faced betrayal, injustice, and displacement, they never gave up on each other or on the hope of a better future. For me, the novel is a powerful reminder that resilience and compassion can flourish even in the harshest conditions, and that sometimes the greatest act of rebellion is simply to love and to endure. Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, written as if reflecting from the heart after finishing the novel. When I close the final pages of The Abominable Love, I am left with a heart that aches and hopes at the same time. Insaf and Deng's story is not just a tale of forbidden love, it's a raw, deeply human journey through pain, courage, and the longing to belong. I felt every moment of Insaf's suffering, the terror of being locked away by her own family, the humiliation of public shame, the agony of betrayal by those who should have protected her. I felt Deng's heartbreak as he was stripped of dignity, family, and even his own body, simply for loving across a line others had drawn in blood. Yet, what moves me most is not just their suffering, but their refusal to let the world define them. Insaf's resilience, her ability to rise again and again, to claim her own voice, to love fiercely even when love seemed impossible, reminds me of the quiet strength that lives in all of us. Deng's loyalty, his willingness to sacrifice everything for the woman he loves, is a testament to the power of hope in the face of despair. Their journey is not a fairy tale. The wounds of racism, patriarchy, and religious violence do not magically heal. Even in exile, even in the safety of a new country, the scars remain. But there is something profoundly beautiful in the way they build a new life together, refusing to be broken by the cruelty of others. Their love, once called abominable, becomes a quiet act of rebellion, a promise that dignity and compassion can survive even the darkest night. Reading this novel, I am reminded that the world can be unbearably cruel, but also that the human spirit is capable of astonishing endurance. Insaf and Deng's story is a call to see the humanity in those who are cast out, to stand up against injustice, and to believe that even when everything is lost, love can still be found and can still save us. Their story lingers with me, a bittersweet reminder that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to keep loving, keep hoping, and keep rising no matter how many times the world tries to keep us down. Dear Dr. A. Ahmed, I am writing to you after finishing The Abominable Love, and I find myself deeply moved, shaken, and inspired by the journey you have shared. Your novel is so much more than a story of forbidden love. It is a raw, unflinching exploration of what it means to be human in a world that so often denies our shared humanity. Reading about Insaf and Deng, I felt their pain as if it were my own. Insaf's suffering, the betrayals by her family, the violence of patriarchal and religious systems, the loneliness of exile, left me aching. Yet, what struck me most was her resilience, her ability to rise, again and again, from the ashes of humiliation and despair, to claim her voice and to love fiercely even when the world called her love abominable. Deng's loyalty and sacrifice, his willingness to endure loss, disability, and rejection for the sake of love, is a testament to the quiet heroism that so often goes unseen. Your novel does not offer easy hope. The wounds of racism, misogyny, and religious intolerance do not simply disappear. Even in the safety of a new country, the scars remain. But there is a profound beauty in the way Insaf and Deng build a new life together, refusing to be defined by the cruelty of others. Their love, once condemned, becomes an act of rebellion, a quiet, persistent flame that refuses to be extinguished. What lingers with me most is the sense that, even in the darkest moments, your characters never lose their capacity for hope, for dignity, and for compassion. Their story is a reminder that the world can be unbearably cruel, but also that the human spirit is capable of astonishing endurance. You have given voice to those who are too often silenced, and in doing so, you have challenged me, and I believe, every reader, to look more honestly at the injustices around us and to imagine a world where love and justice are possible. Thank you for writing this novel. Thank you for your courage, your honesty, and your compassion. The Abominable Love is a story I will carry with me for a long time, a bittersweet reminder that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to keep loving, keep hoping, and keep rising, no matter how many times the world tries to keep us down. With deep respect and gratitude, a reader. Dear Dr. A. Ahmed, as I reflect on the story you have told in The Abominable Love, I am overwhelmed by the weight of all that was lost and all that was endured for the sake of love. You have captured not only my journey, but the sacrifices that defined my very existence. From the moment I fell in love with Insaf, I knew that every step forward would come at a cost. I gave up my comfort, my dreams, and my place in the world. I sold my car, the only symbol of independence I had, to pay for her defense when the world turned against her. I left behind my studies in medicine, the future my parents had hoped for, because I could not stand by while Insaf suffered alone. I stood in courtrooms, not as a respected son or student, but as a pariah, accused of corrupting a woman whose only crime was loving me. I endured the pain of being disowned by my family, losing the embrace of my mother and father, and the promise of a life with my fiancée Susie. I watched as my parents' marriage fractured under the strain of my choices, and I bore the guilt of knowing that my love for Insaf had cost them their peace. I accepted the loneliness of exile, the humiliation of being called a slave, and the violence of a society that saw my skin as a stain. But the greatest sacrifice was the loss of my own body. When the Sharia court annulled my marriage and condemned me for loving across the lines of tribe and race, I was flogged until my back was torn and my spirit nearly broken. I became disabled, confined to a wheelchair, stripped of the life I once knew. Yet even then, I did not regret my choices. I would endure it all again for Insaf. Through it all, I never stopped fighting for her. I hired lawyers, wrote letters, and pleaded with authorities and strangers alike. I risked everything to help her escape, to keep her safe, to give her hope when all hope seemed lost. Even when we were separated by continents and by the cruelty of fate, I held on to the belief that our love was worth every sacrifice. You have shown the world that love is not just a feeling, but a series of choices, a willingness to give up everything for another person's dignity and freedom. My sacrifices were not acts of martyrdom, but of hope. Hope that one day, Insaf and I could live as equals, as partners, as a family. Hope that our children would inherit a world less cruel than the one we knew. Thank you for telling our story with such honesty and compassion. Thank you for honoring the pain, the loss, and the endurance that love sometimes demands. In the end, my sacrifices were not in vain. Through them, I found a deeper meaning to life, a meaning rooted in love, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between two souls who refuse to be defeated. With gratitude and hope. Dang Majak Nasser, Dr. A. Ahmed. As I reflect on the story you have told, the story that was once my life, my pain, my hope, I am filled with emotions I can barely name. You have given voice to the journey of a woman who is silenced, shamed, and cast out, and in doing so, you have given me back my dignity. There were times when I thought I would not survive. When my own family locked me away, shaved my head, and tried to erase my spirit, I felt as if I had died before my life had even begun. I was forced to marry a man old enough to be my grandfather, accused of crimes I did not commit, and paraded before courts and crowds as if I were nothing but a vessel for others' shame. I was called a whore, a murderer, a traitor to my faith and my people. I was stripped of everything: my home, my name, my safety, and nearly my sanity. But you did not let my story end there. You showed the world that, even in the darkest places, a woman can find the strength to rise. My resistance was not always loud, but it was real. The courage to run, to fight back, to refuse to let my body or my soul be sold. The courage to love Dang, even when the world called our love abominable. The courage to claim my own faith, to wear a cross around my neck, and to say, I am more than what you call me. I have lost so much: my family, my country, the innocence I once had. But I have also gained a new life, a new family, and a love that survived every attempt to destroy it. Dang's sacrifices, his willingness to give up his future, his family, even his body for me, taught me what it means to be truly loved. Together, we endured exile, prison, and the hatred of those who could not see our humanity. Together, we built a home in a new land, and I learned that hope can grow even in the soil of sorrow. Thank you for telling my story with honesty and compassion. Thank you for showing that a woman's worth is not measured by her obedience or her suffering, but by her courage to endure, to hope, and to love. My scars remain, but so does my voice. And, through your words, I know that I am not alone. With gratitude and hope.
Insaf Salah Al-Junaid.
Drawing from the content of The Abominable Love by Dr. A. Ahmed, here's how Insaf rebuilt her life after enduring profound trauma, loss, and displacement. 1. Survival and escape. After surviving forced marriage, public shaming, imprisonment, and exile, Insaf's first act of rebuilding is simply to survive. She escapes from Sudan, then from further persecution in India, and finally finds herself in the UK and later Canada. Each escape is not just a flight from danger, but a step toward reclaiming her agency. 2. Finding compassion and new community. Insaf's journey is marked by repeated rejection from her own family and community. However, she gradually finds acceptance and support from unexpected sources. Indian Christian family. In India, after being released on bail, she is taken in by the Matthew family, who offer her shelter, kindness, and a sense of belonging. Their unconditional support helps her heal and regain trust in others. International allies. In the UK, legal advocates and the UN legal advisor Jennifer Beals play a crucial role in saving her from extradition and likely execution, recognizing her as a refugee and a survivor rather than a criminal. 3. Reclaiming identity and faith. Insaf's rebuilding is also spiritual and psychological. Conversion and self-definition. After experiencing both the cruelty and the compassion of religious communities, Insaf chooses to convert to Christianity, not as an escape, but as an act of self-definition and gratitude to those who helped her. Wearing a cross becomes a symbol of her new identity and her refusal to be shamed. Letting go of shame, she learns to see herself not as a victim or a criminal, but as a survivor with dignity and worth. 4. Building a new family and home. Reunion with Deng. Against all odds, Insaf is reunited with Deng, her first and truest love. Despite both being scarred, Deng physically disabled, Insaf emotionally wounded, they choose to build a life together. Motherhood. Insaf gives birth to her son and later, more children. Motherhood becomes a source of hope and purpose, a way to create a future not defined by her past suffering. Resettlement in Canada. Together with Deng and their children, Insaf starts anew in Canada. They deliberately distance themselves from the Sudanese and Muslim communities that once rejected them, instead embracing a diverse, inclusive environment. 5. Acts of remembrance and gratitude. Honoring those who helped, Insaf names her children after those who showed her kindness, Mark and Emily, after the Indian family who sheltered her. Letters and reconciliation attempts. She writes letters to her estranged family and former friends, seeking closure and offering forgiveness, even when her efforts are met with silence. 6. Embracing a new purpose. Raising her children differently, Insaf and Deng choose to raise their children in a Christian school, determined to break the cycle of prejudice and violence that shaped their own lives. Living authentically, Insaf refuses to hide her story or her scars. She lives openly as a survivor, a mother, a wife, and a woman of faith. Summary table. How Insaf rebuilt her life. Step description. Survival and escape, fled Sudan, India, and legal persecution, sought asylum in the West. New community, found compassion with the Matthew family and international advocates. Reclaiming identity, converted to Christianity, let go of imposed shame, wore cross openly. Family and home, reunited with Deng, became a mother, resettled in Canada. Remembrance and gratitude, honored helpers through her children's names, wrote letters to her past. New purpose, raised children in a spirit of tolerance, lived authentically and openly. Insaf's rebuilding, in her own words, paraphrased. I have lost so much, my family, my country, the innocence I once had. But I have also gained a new life, a new family, and a love that survived every attempt to destroy it. Through the kindness of strangers, the birth of my children, and the courage to claim my own faith, I have learned that hope can grow even in the soil of sorrow. My scars remain, but so does my voice. I am not what was done to me, I am what I choose to become. Insaf's journey of rebuilding is not about erasing the past, but about transforming pain into strength, isolation into community, and shame into dignity. Her story is a testament to the possibility of healing, even after the deepest wounds. Diary entry, Calgary, Canada. I never thought I would live to write these words. There were so many nights when I believed my story would end in a cell, or in exile, or in the silence of a nameless grave. But today, as I watch my children play in the pale Canadian sunlight, I feel something I once thought was lost to me forever: peace. Rebuilding my life was not a single act, but 1,000 small choices. At first, it was simply surviving, escaping Sudan, then India, then the threat of being sent back to die. Each time I ran, I left behind another piece of the girl I used to be. I was stripped of my name, my faith, my family, and my home. But I was not stripped of hope. When the Matthew family took me in, I learned that kindness could come from strangers, that love could be found in unexpected places. Their home became my shelter, their faith a comfort, their acceptance a balm for wounds I thought would never heal. I wore a cross around my neck, not just as a symbol of faith, but as a promise to myself. I would never again let anyone define my worth. Reuniting with Deng was a miracle I scarcely dared to dream. We were both scarred, he in body, I in spirit, but together we found the courage to begin again. Our children became the proof that love can survive even the harshest storms. I named them for those who showed us mercy: Mark, Emily, Lillian, Marwa, Mona, and Majak. Each name is a prayer of gratitude, a thread tying our new life to the kindness that saved us. Canada is not paradise, but it is a place where I can walk the streets without fear, where my children can go to school without shame, where I can speak my mind and worship as I choose. I have written letters to my family, to those who hurt me and those who helped me, but I do not wait for answers. I have learned that forgiveness is a gift I give myself. Some days, the memories return: the cell, the courtroom, the faces of those who called me whore, murderer, apostate. But I am not those things. I am a survivor. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a woman who refused to be broken. If there is one lesson I carry, it is this: we are more than what is done to us. We can choose, every day, to build something new from the ruins. My scars remain, but so does my voice. And as I watch my children laugh, I know that I have finally come home. Insaf. Diary entry, Calgary, Canada. Sometimes, when the house is quiet and the children are asleep, I let myself remember. I remember the girl. I was the girl who ran, who hid, who was told again and again that her love was a crime. I remember the pain, the fear, the endless nights in strange places, and the feeling that I would never belong anywhere again. But today, as I watch Mark and Emily chase each other through the snow outside our window, I know I have built something new from the ruins. My life is not what I once dreamed, but it is real, and it is mine. Rebuilding began with survival, but it became so much more. The kindness of the Matthew family in India taught me that not all love is conditional, not all homes are prisons. Their warmth helped me believe in goodness again. When I wore the cross they gave me, it was not just a symbol of faith, but of gratitude and rebirth. And then, against all odds, Deng found me again. I will never forget the first time I saw him after our long separation, his body weakened by pain, but his eyes still shining with the same fierce love. He took my hand in his, and for a moment, the world faded away. I remembered the boy who waited for me outside my school in Gedaref, who wrote me letters I had to tear up, who believed in us when no one else did. Even now, when he struggles to walk or when the old sadness clouds his face, I see the same Deng, gentle, stubborn, loyal to the end. He sacrificed everything: his family, his future, even his health, so we could have this life. Sometimes, when I feel lost, I remember the night in our tiny Sudanese hut when he told me, "We are more than what they say we are. We are what we choose." That memory is my anchor. Here in Canada, we are building a new story. We named our children for those who showed us mercy, and we raised them to be kind, to question, to love without fear. I have written letters to my family, to those who hurt me and those who helped me, but I do not wait for answers. Forgiveness is a gift I give myself. There are days when the past returns: the courtroom, the cell, the words meant to break me. But I am not broken. I am a survivor, a mother, a wife, and a woman who refused to be silenced. My scars remain, but so does my voice. And when I look at Deng, I know we're home. Insaf. Diary entry, Calgary, Canada. Tonight, as the children sleep and Deng sits quietly reading by the window, I find myself drifting back to the very beginning, to our first date, when everything was new and terrifying and wonderful. I remember the dusty street outside my school in Gedaref, the way the sun made the air shimmer and the world feel both endless and impossibly small. Deng was waiting for me, leaning against the wall, pretending to be casual, but I could see the nervousness in his eyes. He was so tall, so different from anyone I had ever known, his smile shy, his voice gentle, his hands always fidgeting with the strap of his school bag. We didn't dare go anywhere crowded. Instead, we walked side by side along the edge of the market, careful not to touch, careful not to be seen. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. Deng talked about his dreams of becoming a doctor, of seeing the world, of a Sudan where people could love without fear. I told him about my favorite books, about my mother's cooking, about how I wished I could run away and be free. We stopped by a little shop and he bought me a chocolate bar, just a small thing, but it felt like a treasure. We sat on a low wall, sharing the chocolate, laughing about nothing and everything. For a moment, the world's cruelty faded away. I could almost believe we were just two ordinary teenagers, not an Arab girl and an African boy breaking every rule. Before we parted, Deng gave me a letter, his handwriting careful, the words full of hope and longing. I read it in the girls' bathroom at school, my hands shaking, my cheeks burning. I tore it up, flushed the pieces away, but the words stayed with me. "You are the light in my darkness, Insaf. I will wait for you, no matter how long it takes." That was our first date. No grand gestures, no promises, just stolen time, a taste of chocolate, and the beginning of a love that would change everything. Sometimes I wonder if we knew, even then, how hard the road ahead would be. But I also know that I would choose that day, that walk, that chocolate, and that boy again and again, no matter the cost. Insaf. To Insaf. Deng's letter is written with the earnestness and vulnerability of a young man experiencing first love, but also with the awareness that every word is risky. In the novel, Deng pours his heart out in these letters, expressing admiration, longing, and hope for a future together, even as he knows that their relationship is condemned by their families and society. Key elements of Deng's letter. Tenderness and admiration. Deng writes about how much he admires Insaf's beauty, intelligence, and spirit. He tells her she is the light in his darkness. Hope and promise. He promises to wait for her, no matter how long it takes, and dreams of a day when they can be together openly. Fear and secrecy. Deng is careful, knowing that if the letter is discovered, it could bring shame or even danger to Insaf. He asks her to destroy the letter after reading it. Simple gestures. The letter is often accompanied by small gifts, chocolate, a photograph, or a pressed flower, tokens of affection that must be hidden away. Longing and pain. Deng confides how much he misses her, how he counts the days until he can see her again, and how every separation feels unbearable. Example, paraphrased in Insaf's memory. "You're the light in my darkness, Insaf. I will wait for you, no matter how long it takes. I know the world is against us, but my heart cannot forget you. Every day I see you, even from afar, is a blessing. Please remember me, even if you must pretend not to know me. Yours always, Deng." Insaf reads these letters in secret, often in the girls' bathroom at school, her hands trembling with both excitement and fear. She tears them up and flushes them away, but the words linger in her heart, giving her strength and hope in the face of overwhelming odds. My dearest Insaf, I hope you will forgive me for writing these words, even though I know the danger if anyone else were to find them. But my heart is too full to keep silent, and I need you to know what you mean to me. Every day since I first saw you outside your school, I have carried your image with me, your smile, your eyes, the way you walk with quiet strength even when the world tries to make you small. I know they say our love is impossible, that it is a shame, a scandal, a curse. But to me, it is the only thing that feels true in a world full of lies. When I see you, even from a distance, my heart finds hope. I dream of a day when we can walk together without fear, when I can hold your hand in the open, when your father and mine will see us not as enemies, but as two souls who found each other in the darkness. I know you are afraid. I am too. But I promise you, Insaf, I will wait for you, no matter how long it takes, no matter what they say or do. I will not let go of this love, even if it costs me everything. You are the light in my darkness, the reason I believe there is still goodness in this world. If you ever feel alone, remember that I am with you, even if only in spirit. If you must destroy this letter, please keep my words in your heart. I will write again if I can. Until then, know that you are loved, fiercely and forever. Yours always, Deng, my beloved Deng. Your letter found me in a moment of loneliness, and reading your words was like feeling the sun on my face after a long night. I am writing these lines with trembling hands, knowing the risks, but unable to keep my feelings hidden any longer. You say I am the light in your darkness, but you must know that you are the hope in my despair. Every day, I carry your memory with me, your gentle smile, your kind eyes, the way you always believed in us, even when the world called our love a sin. When I am afraid, I remember your courage. When I am shamed, I remember your pride in me. When I am alone, I remember that somewhere, you are waiting, and that gives me strength. Sometimes I wonder if I am selfish to dream of a future with you. The world has made it clear that we are not meant to be, that I am to marry a stranger and forget you. But I cannot. My heart refuses to let go. I replay our stolen moments in my mind, the way you made me laugh, the way you listened, the way you saw me as more than a daughter or a burden or a shame. With you, I am simply Insaf. I am afraid, Deng. I am afraid of what my family will do if they discover this letter, afraid of what will happen to you, afraid of the future. But your words give me courage. If you can wait for me, then I can endure. If you can love me in the darkness, then I can find my way through it. I will keep your letter close to my heart, even if I must destroy these pages. I will remember your promise, and I will make one of my own. I will not forget you. I will not let them erase what we have. No matter what happens, know that you are loved fiercely, secretly, and forever. Yours always, Insaf.